Okay.
Hey Matthew, it's Trevor. How's it going today?
Doing well. How about you?
Awesome. Thank you very much for taking my call. Um, so we're recording today's video. So say hi to everybody out there in on our RNK Software Club.
Hello.
If you guys don't know, this is Matthew, and Matthew is, or is it this way? I'm not sure which side you. Matthew's the guy that is in house in Knoxville that will often answer our emails or our software tickets and your phone calls. And so thanks, Matthew, for all of the awesome work that you do to help everybody. Matt thought it might be kind of cool to record a little video together because he gets some of the questions that Matt gets are come up, again and again. And so they're good ones to put on like a frequently asked questions page. And so we thought we'd do like a series, once a month or every so often. Matt and I are going to get together. And so you got some good questions for me today, Matt?
Yeah, we've had some pretty interesting ones
All right.
lately. Um,
So I'll go ahead and switch to my screen and you
okay.
fire away and we'll see what we can do to help everyone today.
Okay. The first one today was from someone who said that when they are using the line tool and then they try to convert it to a steel stitch, he noticed that the color in the sequence view box was changing and
Okay.
wanted to know why that would happen.
Right. So there, and it's one of those questions that can take a minute to think about, right? Because if I draw a line and it's blue and I select it and I convert it into, let's say, a steel stitch, and it turns pink. And yet that never happens to me, And so I have to kind of think it through when you get a question like that, because what it's about is because one of the things that you said when you asked me this question the first time was that they had recently got the expansion pack. Did you say that again? I forgot if I didn't hear it, but that was kind of a relevant detail that kind of helped me figure out the answer to why did that happen, right? Because I drew a blue line and when I converted it into embroidery, why did it turn red? That's kind of the question, right? And it's really what's and the reason I said about the expansion pack is because that's how I figured out what was different. Because when you get the expansion pack, that is like adding some other programs or other capabilities to your Floriani software. So originally you had FTCU, but then you bought the expansion pack. And so now you have Total Quilter, you've got Sketch-a-Stitch, you've got Lettering Master. So it's added some tools. And what's happened is, and I'll show you the fix, Matt. You go on the preferences of the program, the little kind of wheel here. And when you click on that, you get a box that opens up and it has different tabs in it. And the tab is actually for Total Quilter, because it's Total Quilter that's kind of changed things, is what I'm telling you. It was Total Quilter that changed the deal. And that's why the questions come up. See, it says, keep artwork segments in embroidery conversion. I know it's not like extremely clear what that means. So let me explain that. I'm going to uncheck it now. So when I draw a line, and this is how FTCU normally works. When you draw a line, it's a piece of artwork. And when you select your artwork and you convert it into a steel stitch like this, it converts your line into the steel stitch. And so you have only one line here. Let me do this. I'm going to get rid of everything on my screen because there was already two things there. So I'll do it over. Okay. I'm sorry. Draw a line, right click to finish. And it's a blue line. And if I click on my steel stitch tool, I get a blue steel stitch. And that's what I think the customer was expecting to happen, right? The way it always has. You
Right.
converted your blue line into a blue steel stitch. But when you buy the expansion pack and you now have all of the Total Quilter tools like added to your software, in the preferences, there's a little window that, or a little option, like a tab for Total Quilter, and it says keep artwork segments for embroidery conversion. Now this has got more to do with the Total Quilter workflow. So I want you to imagine that you drew a box. So we'll just use like a square. You drew some kind of element for quilting, and you have this box that you drew. It's a piece of artwork. And now when you select it and you convert it into, let's say, some kind of a textured embroidery fill, you still have the original box. And so what it did was it made the fill as a new segment. And I can go back to the box and say, well, now I want to put a border on it. And so, and even after I added the border, I still have the original artwork, and I could click on that and say, now I want to add something else to it, or use that to digitally cut it. So it's a change in the workflow is what it is. And that's, so it's real. And if you like it, great, leave it on. But if you're normally digitizing embroidery, because to me, I turn it off, because what happens is I'll draw 25 like shapes to make an embroidery design. And when I convert them into embroidery, I don't really want the shapes anymore. I don't need them anymore. And if I leave them, it makes my design have like kind of like duplicate copies of everything that I've made. So it's not wrong or right. It's just a change in the workflow. And the customer can decide how they want it to go. But where it catches you is when you first install the upgrade, the default is turned on. And so that's, I think, where the customer's question kind of comes from, is after they got the upgrade. So long story short, Matt, all you need to do is go into the Total Quilter settings and uncheck it. And then everything will kind of go back to the way life was. So now if I take the artwork for that square and I click on any kind of fill for it, like a fancy fill or a motif fill or whatever, it converts that into the embroidery, and I no longer have a piece of artwork. If I want a piece of artwork, I can always get it, right? You just click on it, click on copy, click on paste, click on artwork. Now I haven't, so it's just semantics. Which way do you want to go? Anyway, long answer to a short question, hey?
Okay. The next one we have is, well, we get this one a lot, and it is, somebody will say they've been working on a design, and then they want to hit the slow redraw, and then they cannot find it, and they want to know where it's gone and how they can get it back.
Yes, I've seen that one on Facebook quite a few times. People saying, I lost my, and the other one sometimes people lose is like the color bar, or I've
Right.
even seen like the whole toolbar at the bottom go missing. And
Right.
now what I can't explain is why that can happen. But basically, I have seen it a lot of times. I think it happens if you're, for me, when I use the demo mode, that'll certainly kind of maybe confuse it. There's a quick fix, Matt, to this one. It's a real, everybody should know this. Maybe what we need to do is make a big bright red button on the toolbar for it, because it comes up so often. It's here under toolbars, under workspace. You can reset your workspace. And that is really important to know, because if your workspace ever gets confused and it's like there's normally a slow redraw tool and it's just gone and I can't figure out where it went. Now, slow redraw does have a button, so you can actually turn that one off by just like purposely turning it off. So that's also kind of part of it. But in general, you can reset your workspace. And like on that same kind of topic, you can change them, right? So I know a lot of people have noticed that sometimes when I record, I have my toolbars moved around in different places, and that's because I'll take my toolbars off of where they started out, and I'll put them in different places. And I'm not saying that there's a correct place for any of the toolbars. Only if it makes you happy to have it over here versus over there, that's your prerogative. You can, it's a customizable workspace. And then, so the kind of the point to that is, when you go under toolbars and workspace, not only can you reset your workspace to put everything back, you can save it. And if you save one, it goes up here, right? So these are like, this is my new favorite workspace, Matt. I've saved it so that I can go back to it. And it kind of, and that kind of puts my toolbars where I like them, versus, you know, if you're teaching a class and you want to make sure that everybody's workspace looks the same, you can reset it, and that kind of puts it back to like the factory default. So what I'm saying is, for me, if I'm working away and I think my workspace gets confused, I don't necessarily go to reset the workspace. I go to back to I reset to my favorite workspace, you know, like these are also reset buttons, but they're resets to saved workspaces. So either way, if you're missing something, you might need to go back to doing it like that. Yeah,
Okay.
for sure.
All right. And I think the last one we had was, some people may have noticed that we had a new update this week, sort of a
Right.
mini update. What can you tell everybody about that?
Okay, good question. And by the way, just because I just had a thought about toolbars or whatever while we're talking about toolbars. So I'll tell you about the update in a second. Toolbars. When you click on toolbars, they're all shown here. You don't, if you want to have only some, like just as an example, when I do my digitizing and my sketching, I will often go to my toolbars and I have a saved workspace for sketching. And what I've done here is I've actually closed a lot of the toolbars that I'm not using to make more workspace. And really for me, Matt, this comes down to, I'm working on a laptop, you know, and if you're working on a desktop and you're on like a computer that has a large monitor, then you probably have more kind of pixels, right, to work with. So when I go under toolbars and workspace and I go to my favorite workspace, that's the one that I use when I like to edit my designs, because it gives me the least amount of kind of digitizing workspace, but it makes all my toolbars kind of nice and visible. And it made extra space for the sequence bar because I brought the properties side by side. And sometimes people like to know how I do that, right? And I won't kind of go through it from start to stop because there is a video. Like if you look backwards in the weekly archive, there are a couple videos on how to do it. The short answer is, if you want to know how to do how I put the properties box beside the sequence view, you need to go into your preferences and you need to go under the environment tab. Maybe I'm wrong on that. It's the view tab, sorry. And on the view tab, you have to unlock the properties box and the sequence view. And if you unlock them, when they're unlocked, it gives you the ability to actually click on the area and move them, you know, and I can move it to be, I guess I could make a floating properties box, which makes a really big sequence view. Because what I also did was, I see how if I move my mouse right over the sort of divide line between the workspace and the sequence view, how I can make that area bigger and smaller.
Right.
And then to park the properties on it, when I move it over, I don't know how well this shows up, but these little landing pads show up like this, and I can use them to kind of decide where it goes. Anyway, if you want to see that again with a little more detail, there is a video on doing that. But I just, before I forgot, I wanted to say, you can close another time. People often say, I lost my properties box, because you can click on the X to close it. And if you close it, you're like, where'd my properties box go? But you can get it back again. There's a button for it right here, properties, and that'll be like an on off button. Sometimes people are wanting to see more of the sequence view. So here, let me do this. Toolbars, reset my workspace to like the factory, you know, the default settings, and notice how the properties box and the sequence view are above. And on my little laptop, when I have all these like 3 rows of tools above, it kind of starts to give me not much room for my sequence view. And so that's why I like it side by side. But another sort of tactic might be to just hide the properties box. So now you can see your whole sequence view better, and then turn the properties box back on again when you want to see it. And that's another time where sometimes people say that they're on their properties box, and look where the apply button is. And what can happen is you can actually get your cursor here. Let me see if I can do it there. See right there, and you can actually resize these boxes smaller. And I've seen where the screen got confused, and so when they went on to like a property like this, where the apply box was like kind of like missing, that let's put it this way: if your apply box, if your properties box is kind of out of whack and you can't see the apply button, you might need to use that toolbars and reset your workspace one more time. The fix is always the same. Reset your workspace, but there's a variety of things that can happen to people, and so I thought I would say that, and because I think it's interesting to know that you can come in and say, you know what, right now I don't need this toolbar, and I don't need that toolbar, and I don't need this toolbar, and you can turn them off, and at any time you can come back in and turn them back on again. And when you make a workspace that you love, you can save it. So okay, I'll stop saying the same thing over and over again. Yeah, okay. One last question for Matt, and that was, what the heck is about the update? So to be honest, Matt, we are working on an update. When I say an update, I mean like when we're going to actually upgrade the software and have new cool things. The timing of that is not exactly known, but it's normally in the spring, and so sometime April, May, there will be an update with some new stuff. That said, there was an update just put out like earlier this week, and it really isn't anything that all users would need to come and get. It's not wrong to come and get it. If you want to come and get the latest version, just go ahead and download it. But the point is, you won't find any new tools or buttons or features unless you happen to be one of the customers that purchased the expansion pack or the universal bundle. Because those customers, and I have to specifically add, and you want to use it with an iPad, because what this is all about is the iPad app, and there is an iPad app. And when we released the Sketch-a-Stitch, it sort of like has an iPad companion, and the iPad companion, you like save your activation code onto the iPad so that when you share the designs, they'll open on your computer. And the problem was the new universal codes, while they made Sketch-a-Stitch work on the computer, they weren't working with the iPad. We actually had to update the iPad app. So there was simultaneously, there was an update put out for the iPad app and for the desktop software. And so if you're one of those customers that recently purchased our expansion pack and got Sketch-a-Stitch that way, but your code is not for Sketch-a-Stitch, it's for the expansion pack, then the problem was it wasn't working on the iPad. And so anyway, we fixed all that with a kind of a soft patch. So there's a new update on the website, but it doesn't have any extra stuff. There's no new formats, no new technologies that were added. So that said, there's no reason for all the users that are already running kind of like the most recent build prior to that to come and get it. You're welcome to come and get it. And if it just happens to be the timing that you need to download software, then that's the latest version and that's what you can get. I'm just saying there will be an update that will sort of talk more about coming up in a month or two from now in the spring, where we'll have some new things to talk about and enhancements and all the stuff that people like to look forward to, new color palettes, that kind of stuff. So maybe some fonts. I don't actually have any promises at the moment on what it's going to be. I'll just let you know the wish list is long, and we'll see what we can get done. So I think the questions you might be getting are like, do I need to get this update? And if so, if you're watching this video, the answer is not necessarily, unless you happen to be somebody that's a new customer that has an iPad and wants to make their Sketch-a-Stitch, talk to their desktop software. That's what it's all about. If you need any extra help, guys, just write in. Matthew's, will know exactly what to say. Yeah. Okay. So thanks for recording a video with me, Matt. That was fun.
Absolutely. Fun as always.
If you guys are having any more questions, don't be afraid to reach out to us. Matthew's the man, and he does an awesome job. So thank you, Matt, for helping people, and thanks for getting in on the video today. All right.
Absolutely.
All right. Take care until next week. Thanks for listening, everybody, and bye for now.